Doctor Who fans, hello. Welcome to another news roundup video here as we're going to discuss about some big things going on this weekend. As we all know, we're now fastly approaching the last weekend of the series of Doctor Who Season 1. And funny enough, tonight is going to be the airing of a very special Tales of the TARDIS. You may remember I mentioned that there's a Tales of the TARDIS coming out at 9 p.m. on BBC4 this evening. Well, funny enough, that one is going to be related to the Pyramids of Mars when the Doctor first met Sutek, voiced by the returning Gabriel Wolf, who originally voiced the character of Sutek, has also returned for the upcoming finale, Legend of Ruby Sunday, who obviously returned last week to voice the character, and he's going to be back this week to voice the character of Empires of Death. Well, you're going to have another opportunity to see this episode because, funny enough, they've actually gave it a makeover with some updated visual effects. It's going to be an entire remaster of the sort of a feature-length omnibus version where it's been completely remastered for the Tales of the TARDIS that they're going to be airing tonight at 9 p.m. on BBC4, which will have obviously the 15th Doctor and Ruby reflecting on the Doctor's first battle against Sutek, which is and essentially just look back at their previous adventures as well as showing Pyramids of Mars for those who want to see how Sutek first came into the world of Doctor Who and how the Fourth Doctor encountered Sutek, but in the form that he was back then. So if you want to see that, you can tune into that on at 8 p.m. this evening on BBC4 and on BBC iPlayer. You'll be able to check that out if you want to see the 15th Doctor and Ruby reflect on not just their previous battles, but also preparing themselves to face Sutek this weekend, which is crazy that we're getting Sutek this weekend. But hey, yeah, so that's pretty cool. We've got a Tales of the TARDIS to look forward to, and I'm obviously going to be doing a review of this at some point in July, so definitely look out for that. Now, speaking of Gabriel Wolf, he had an interview just a few days ago talking about the return of the character because obviously he got hired back in by Russell T Davies, and he kind of sort of talks about what it's like to come back to the Whoniverse and basically the world of Doctor Who, and he talks about how he feels about Sutek being revived after nearly 50 years. Can you believe it? He goes on to say, it felt sort of inedible in a way. I never lost Sutek because of the fans. They kept him alive, organized conventions all over the place. It felt kind of natural. So that is kind of true. The fans did keep Sutek alive. They kept the memory of Sutek, mainly because of the fact that many classic fans looked up to this character, the enemy, obviously, of Sutek, because most people talk about how much they love Pyramids of Mars and they love the whole Sutek storyline. So it made sense for Russell to bring it back, obviously, because of the success of Pyramids of Mars. And then, of course, he gets asked the question about your reaction when asked to come back to the Whoniverse. He says he was over the moon, delighted and thrilled. It was wonderful. Fans have always said, oh, you must come back. And I said, it's not up to me. Now it's happened. Extraordinary. So he was obviously over the moon to finally revisit this character almost 50 years later, which is crazy. And then, of course, he goes on to say, did you think you would ever return to the Whoniverse? And he says, no, it's been 48 years since we did it, so I thought it was pretty unlikely. It was a big surprise, but a good one. So in theory, Gabriel Wolf didn't even think he was going to come back, which is kind of crazy that these days some actors from past who don't think they're ever going to return. But luckily Russell T Davies does find ways to bring some of these faces back, which is great to see that he's bringing faces from past who feel like they'll never get called back in. Luckily, lo and behold, Gabriel Wolf had the chance to return as Sutek. And then interestingly, he talks about the differences between Sutek from the one he played in 1975, which, by the way, that's when the episode aired, the Pyramids of Mars, and of course the current Sutek. And he says, well, visually, certainly I thought there's been some developments to the character, but we do have the same classic lines here. So there he is recognizable. He's destroying the same universe. So obviously, despite the visual changes, he is still technically the same enemy that we saw in Pyramids of Mars, if that makes any sense. Interestingly enough, Gabriel Wolf has played other characters in Doctor Who. In case you didn't know, he played the Beast in The Impossible Planet and St. and spit with David Tennant. He never met him, but many of the people, but I do things in a little box of my own. So Gabriel Wolf did actually voice the Beast, funny enough, even though, so he was essentially the voice of the Beast even before he came back as Sutek, which is crazy that I never even knew he actually voiced the Beast. But there you go, Gabriel Wolf was involved in the whole Beast storyline in the series 2 of Doctor Who when David Tennant was at the helm. But yeah, so you can see the rest of the interview, by the way, in the conversation below if you want to hear more from Gabriel Wolf about his take on Sutek and basically how delighted he is to return to Doctor Who and return to the character that he hasn't revisited. Well, he hasn't basically played in nearly 50 years, which is crazy that they're bringing that back. So that's very, very cool for Russell to finally bring him back. Finally lovely to hear from Gabriel Wolf. As well as this, we did get a preview of, Empires of Death, because Doctor Who magazine has a brand new issue that's just gone out today. As you can see, the tagline says, "The one who waits no more. Can you survive the apocalyptic season finale?" So yeah, they're really showing a nice, very, very serious cover with the Doctor and with sand around him, obviously showing you the after effects of what Sutek has done to the planet, which we're going to all see this weekend in the Empires of Death. Or if you happen to be going to the cinema tomorrow to see it, then yeah, you're going to have obviously a great time seeing a big screen view of Empires of Death. Because if you haven't forgotten the fact that we're the cinema in the UK are going to be showing the Empires of Death and Legends of Ruby Sunday tomorrow night, so you know there's going to be a lot of people who have got tickets for the cinema who are going to enjoy big screen view of this episode that's coming up. In terms of the Doctor Who magazine, they are talking about the Tales of the TARDIS episode that's going out tonight, the Pyramids of Mars, talking about the many faces of Susan Twist. Obviously, Lenny Rush and Alex Dolan about their characters in Unit. They also catch up with the Duchess from Rogue, doing they're doing like access all areas for Rogue in 73 yards. They're catching up with Shirley Blassey and Johannes from Strictly about the Devil's Core. So it's essentially Doctor Magazine is essentially sort of basically celebrating the series really, and just having a chance to just reflect on previous episodes, and Russell talking about what it was like filming, watching Boom with his family. You get to hear stories about that. Meet the crew who've been working behind the scenes throughout the series. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of that content in Doctor Who magazine as they sort of reflect on this series. Basically, is what they're doing in the magazine, as well as previewing this weekend's episode, The Empire of Death. Is going to be the main focus of the magazine this week. So yeah, you can pick that up right now if you want to see previews of what to expect this weekend, as Doctor Who magazine gives us a little bit of a taste of what's to come on Saturday. Now, as well as this, we do have some new Doctor Who books that are also coming that are available to pre-order. We have the official Doctor Who guide that's coming out on the 15th of August. So this is the guide right here that features Ncuti Gatwa along with previous Doctors in the background. This was an image that Russell and the BBC actually released it following the arrival of Ncuti Gatwa in the Giggle. They actually released an image of this for the press, which is really cool. So they're making that as a cover for the official guide, where there's going to be exclusive content for Ncuti Gatwa's first outing as the 50th Doctor in here. It kind of looks back at the last 60 years and looking at both incarnations of the Doctor, David Tennant's Doctors, from Hartnell to Tom Baker, and essentially looking at all 15 incarnations of Doctor Who and learn about regeneration and bi-generation. So they have included that in there, so you can get a little preview of what bi-generation is. So they might talk a little bit more of how it works in this magazine, or this book, potentially. Yeah, and they also talk about companions and all the foes, and all that stuff will be out on the 15th of August if you want to get your hands on this new official guide that's rolling out this year. And then we've got the cover for this year's Doctor Who annual, which is coming out on the 5th of September. It's going to have a 15th Doctor story, as you can tell, as I suspected. Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson are the cover stars of this year's annual. And they actually say this: from Wrath Warriors to Unit HQ, from Bi-Generation to Weep to the Meep, A whole new world of Who has begun. This companion book of the adventures of a remarkable Doctor and even more remarkable Ruby Sunday, following the latest devastation villains to the heroes are helping save the day. The book is packed with puzzles, quizzes, and games fit for a toy maker. Just keep an eye out for those peeking goblins. So it's interesting they mentioned the toy maker in this. So I wonder if there's going to be some teasers for maybe future returns for toy maker perhaps in this book. Who knows? I mean, it's interesting they say toy maker in there. So maybe there's more to come from the toy maker down the road. Then we have the 15 Doctor 15 stories. That's also going to be another book coming on the 19th of September, which is essentially featuring stories of brand new stories of the 15th and 14th Doctors, who are going to have some new stories in there, including an exclusive tale featuring the 15th Doctor in there. And obviously, the 14th Doctor will face a familiar foe as part of his bonus story that will be a part of this release on the 19th of September. So these three books coming from BBC Books to be released, well, from Penguin Books, should I say, that will be coming this basically not just August, but heading into September. So, yeah, now you have a bit of a glimpse of what you can expect from this year's Doctor Who annual when it releases on the 5th of September. So, at least we now know what to expect. Well, basically, what to expect from the annual this year if you're looking to pick this up. So, at least that's all the details in terms of the books, in terms of the upcoming episode of Doctor Who. And we might as well mention the ratings for the 7-day ratings for the Rogue episode was given a 3.52 million, even though the TV ratings are still yet to be calculated, but I'm sure they'll be released by probably tomorrow. We'll probably know what those ratings are going to be. And then the overnight figures for The Legend of Ruby Sunday was 202 million, so a lot lower than previous weeks, but I'm sure that the actual TV ratings and that will be bigger than what the overnight figures are for the final two episodes. We'll see what the overnight figures for the finale will be. Hopefully a bit better than the Legend of Ruby Sunday. We'll see how it all goes. Now, as the filming of season 2 has wrapped up, we actually know what Millie Gibson's actually working on, because funny enough, Millie Gibson has started working on her next project, which happens to be a remake of an old TV series that's now being reimagined for the future, and that is the Forsay Saga. There's going to be a new take of this where Millie Gibson's going to be playing a redhead in this. She's basically going to be a red-headed woman in the drama, and there's actually a photo of her basically what appears to be her in a wedding dress, which definitely seems like her character is going to get married in this new take. This is basically the third adaptation of this drama that was first tackled in 1967 by the BBC, and then ITV did one in 2002. So this is going to be a basically put together by Malaf Screens in the US under the PBS Masterpiece, who are responsible for many successful dramas over the last few years, over the last couple of years, obviously. And joining Millie Gibson is actually one of the stars who actually appeared in the original BBC adaptation, which is Susan Hampshire. She was also a part of the original BBC take in 1967. She's going to be returning for the third installment, along with Danny Griffiths is in there, Jack Davenport, Ireland Thompson, who you may recognize from the Poldark, when Poldark was a big thing, obviously. But yeah, so these are just some of the faces that are going to be involved in the production of this show. And they plan to have 6 parts run, and it's going to be a 6-part series that's going to be a continuous series. So there's going to be a returning series being planned for this. So they're hoping to have multiple series of this show, as they're going to have 6 episodes a part of it, and the filming began in Monday. It takes filming locations are going to take place in England, Wales, and in Italy. So yes, they are going to be filming in Italy for this drama, which is going to be interesting. So this is what Millie Gibson's working on since wrapping up next year's series, the filming for next year's series of Doctor Who, which is very interesting. Now, David Tennant is also doing another project as well. He's going to be featured in the Thursday Murder Club movie. He's been cast for that, which is going to be getting, well, essentially they're going to be filming later this month, and they're going to be revealing more cast members as they go along. But essentially they're doing a movie version of the book written by Richard Osman, which is going to finally get a movie release in the near future. So he'll be a part of that project when it finally starts filming later this month, and they're hoping to release it hopefully next year. We'll see how it all goes if they try and get the movie out by sometime in 2024, hopefully. This is essentially what they're essentially what's being worked on in terms of the basically what David Tennant's working on in terms of new productions that he's working towards. Another new book that's also up for pre-order right now is the Who Doodle paperback, which is essentially a puzzle book that's going to be coming out for Doctor Who will be coming out pretty soon. In fact, it comes out on the 17th of October. It's essentially going to be essentially Doctor Who's version of a puzzle book. That's going to have a brand new 15th Doctor, the first to the 15th Doctor puzzles, where you get to solve mysteries and help the Doctor and his companions. It's essentially a logic puzzle, so you essentially have to figure out stuff as you go along. That's essentially how this book's going to work when it releases in October. If you want to get your hands on this puzzle book as it releases, and then on top of this, there's also a stretch goal that's coming out regarding a visual archives of character options figures. There's appears to be a campaign where they're hoping to they basically want to do this sort of campaign where they want to sort of look back at the archives of previous character options books, and they want to try and release like a book looking back at previous action figures that have come out, and they want to do like an archive selection of books, which is pretty cool, and they're doing like a whole campaign and Indiegogo, which I'll leave a link in the description if you want to support the Go Figure campaign, which they're hoping to release a book, and they want to try and release a book. They also want to try and maybe do some sort of a DVD. And in fact, it's interesting because this book is essentially going to show some concepts of figures that never got a release, which is really interesting because there's a couple of concepts, character option figures like the Cyber Shade from the Next Doctor, and then you've got one of the members of the Family of Blood that's essentially got a concept art, as you can see in the images here, of what the figures would have looked like if they actually got a release, which is really interesting. They never released it because you would kind of wonder, why did they not release this, as this would have made amazing figure for fans of Doctor Who to get their hands on. And also, interestingly enough, they made these stretch goals where they want to do like a fold-up poster covering the Torchwood figures if they reach 21k. If they reach 23k, they're hoping to expand the Sonic Screwdriver supplement to include other role-play toys. And then at 25k, they want to do a suitable book covering the character building range. And then if they reach 26k, they're hoping to release a VM DVD featuring Go Figure The New Who Generation, which is essentially they want to make a documentary looking at the character option toys, which sounds like fun to me. That I hope they do reach this goal, because I think it'll be amazing to see a documentary about character options process of making the action figures. And then 28k, they're hoping to expand postcard offerings if they reach that goal. If they reach 30k, they'll do another book looking at the Minton cards and collectible editions that will feature essentially covering other character option figures, essentially is what they want to try and achieve here. But essentially, this is essentially what they're hoping to do as part of a new process to essentially celebrate the legacy of action figures for Doctor Who. And they actually put a little bit of a description of what this documentary will essentially look like if we hope to reach this goal. So essentially, they say that Go Figure The New Who Generation is a 60-minute documentary produced by Colin Allen, exploring the impact of character options toy range on a generation of fans who grew up watching Doctor Who after the 2005 revival. And essentially, they're going to look back at all the previous makers like Dolper, Den Fisher, Target Book, Dalek, Dead Ray, Ice Lollies, that apparently used to be a thing. Million in general. Zone viewers would obviously remember the CO range that were very nostalgia. So it's essentially, this documentary is a chance to sort of look at making process of, and in fact, funny enough, they're actually going to be catching up with Doctor Who YouTubers as well as part of this documentary, which is quite nice as well. So they have a chance to catch up with them about how they feel about the collection of character options, which is really nice. So if you want to support the cause, then I'll leave a link in the description, and hopefully they will release this documentary, because I think this documentary definitely deserves a release, because I think it'll be really cool to see this documentary come out in the wild, because I think it'll be amazing to see. They will I honestly really hope it does get a YouTube release at this point, because I think it deserves a exposure, so at least people get to see the process of what it's like for character options to make these Doctor Who figures, and the success of those figures particularly as well. So I think it'd be really cool to see this documentary come out. Hopefully they will. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to support this cause and be able to hopefully lead us to hopefully getting a DVD release of this documentary, and hopefully having this documentary out on YouTube as well, hopefully, so that we can finally get to enjoy the making process of all the collectibles in terms of action figures for Doctor Who. But yeah, so that is pretty much all the news for Doctor Who at this time, really, as we sort of wind down the hype of season one, as of course the season's about to come to a close. But I'm very confident we will get a trailer for Joy to the World on Saturday, which I'm very excited to see what they're going to do with Stephen Moffat's potential last script as a writer for Doctor Who. So it'll be interesting to see how he bows out as a writer. Yeah, so not long to go until we hopefully get our first look at Joy to the World, and we see the conclusion of this two-part finale of how the Doctor's going to defeat whether he's able to defeat Sutak, that is. So we'll see you guys this weekend for my review of Empire of Death. See you then.